Hi, it's Lyle from Made by Marley. Welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to take cheap mass-produced furniture and turn it into something beautiful using texture, and my own furniture was the inspo for this piece, furniture that I painted a couple of years ago. So watch along if you want to see how I made this. So today's tutorial is all about journeys. A furniture painter's journey. I'm not going to bore you with the story of how I got into furniture painting, but I wasn't always a furniture painter, although I always did furniture. It's also about me looking at my own piece of furniture and making my inspiration for this piece. So I'm going to get Martin, the lovely Martin, to just put a picture here, a link to one of our very first few videos, one of mine. Martin wasn't.
There'll be a picture there and a link above it.
There'll be a picture of the furniture beside me here and a link above it. That was back in the day when I still did crafts. Martin sometimes helped me, but I just did my own editing, my own filming, my own everything. So you can see how I want you to see the journey. I want you to see my journey so that it gives you the faith that you're on a journey. But I also wanted to, when I first created that piece, I was so happy with it. But now I look at it, and although I'm still really like it, I think, wonder if I could do better. I wonder if my skills are different now than they were then. So the piece that I painted it with, it was well before, I wasn't an Annie Sloan lady then, so I was using French ink paint. So I used a bluey grey to start the blend. So today I'm going to be, to start the paint. So today I'm going to be using Provence, which is this lovely blue. And I am going to need to mix up a heck of a lot of it because I'm going to need 2 coats, and I'm also going to need 2 coats for the inside as well. So I want to make sure that I've mixed up enough of this paint. Not that I couldn't mix more. You could probably mix enough, and then when the next coat with the texture, you could add it. It's not going to be the end of the world, but so I've got quite a substantial amount in there. And now I'm going to be adding French linen, which is a grey, beigey, greigey colour. And I'm just going to be adding that to my Provence, making sure that I've got enough paint that I think will paint this whole piece of furniture. Now, bearing in mind my second coat's going to have texture, I'm just going to add a little bit more of this. So I'm going to start. Now, my piece that I'm using, my own piece that I'm using as inspo, I'm going to kind of change the colours up a little bit. So it's gone quite grey. Let me have a look. I'm looking for the greyish. Just a little bit more of this, I think. I'm scared that I don't get enough. Always mix more. You can put it into containers. If you don't and you run out, it depends how complicated your mixing it is. If it's quite simple like this, you'll get to it. Yeah, I'm kind of happy with that. Yeah. So it's a sort of grey, a sort of grey green almost, what you call a greige. So it's this colour here. I'm just making sure that I've got it all mixed. So that is the colour I am going to be painting this piece with today. And as I said, I'm going to paint it 1 coat just with no texture in it. Second coat I'm going to be using bentonite clay, but I'll do 1 coat of the whole piece. I'm going to be taking the shelves out and removing them completely right now. I will do those a completely different contrast in colour, but I want to get quite a bit into the project before I decide what that's going to be, because I'd like them to have their own interest, maybe a slightly different shade. So I'll take those out. So I'm going to do 1 coat the whole piece without any texture. So I'm adding kaolin, bentonite clay, you can use kaolin clay, to some of my paint mix so that it's super thick like this, yeah. And can you see here where I've been applying it? I'm just taking it and I am scraping it on to my furniture. I'm not doing the insides. I'm just kind of really basically doing around this band. Up here, same deal. and I'm putting plenty of texture on it. Now Fern was concerned that when this went off that things would come off in big blobs, and I was trying to say to Fern, with the clay and the paint, once it's on, it's on. Tomorrow, once this is dry, I'll sand any bits that I think are going to take your skin off. I'm going to have to move my hand, sorry, Matty.
Sorry, I'm so busy trying to focus on the light. In too close.
Yeah. So this is basically what I'm doing. I've not got much more to do on this side. I just didn't want to labour the point too much. Don't worry about this. I'm going to come back over it. I don't want it in this little part near the glass. It's going to be quite awkward to get off on the glass. I have a way to take the paint off, and I'll show you when we come to that. But the likes of when it's got the clay in it, it's so stuck to things that you have to be careful. Now, what I did with here was I just kind of put it down and then just kind of rubbed it in a little bit. The corner, what I'm going to do with the sides is I'm just going to do up and kind of do just kind of random texture here and there. I'm going to do up round this edge as well. Now, once I've done this, tomorrow morning before we start filming again, when this is dry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it another coat of the paint that I've got left over. I'm going to water down what I've got left, and I'm going to go over the whole thing again so that it's really having two coats, but it's thicker in some areas than others. But that's what I'm going to do. Don't forget places like up around the tops of your bands. Up here, I have to get on a chair and do it up the top, just in case the piece has to be delivered. But yeah, you don't want too many lumpy bumpy bits, but just making sure that it looks really sort of kind of like it's got all the texture on it where you want it. This is going to take away the look of it being a piece of Ikea furniture, but also what it's going to do is it's going to give it a lot more texture. It's going to make it look a little bit more substantial, more than it did when it was a piece of cheap pine. Now, other thing about cheap pine, let me just do this and open my door like this. Giveaways for cheap pine furniture. This is just its base coat. It's got to have another coat inside here, but I paint everything. I'm going to go back in here with an artist brush. I paint all of everything, and I'll tell you why. I don't want any that pine remaining. I want it all to go away so people can't tell when they buy it that it's got pine, it's a piece of cheap furniture. I make sure that I know exactly where my shelves are going to go back in, and I paint those into this. Now, if this was a good, expensive piece of furniture, I would take these out and put matchsticks in the holes so they didn't get paint in them. But when it comes to pine, you want to eradicate any evidence that it was a pine piece of furniture. Okay? We're going to have to get artist brushes and go around here and up round here to get rid of all of this and make sure that this is tidy. But my hinges have been done. Everything has been painted. This shelf doesn't come out. All the rest have came out. I base coated it with this colour, but obviously I'm doing my shelves maybe a different colour, so I'm just going to use this one as my base. But yeah, just make sure that all your pine is eradicated and you can see no more pine. This is just its base coat, but remember to do down in here. And as I said, I've got a tool, a scraper tool that can scrape all this off the glass. People do this thing where they mask off their furniture because they're scared that if you scrape it, it's going to scrape the glass. That's not true. It won't scrape the glass. A razor blade on a tool just takes all that off, doesn't scrape anything. It saves masking tape and it all, and with all the best will in the world. Getting your masking tape right in there so that you can still get to that edge. You're better over painting it and going onto the glass and getting it really crisp and tidying it up with a razor blade. So that is what it is going to dry like tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'll wash over it with some watered down paint on the front where there's loads of texture, a proper coat without water down on the back, so that we start tomorrow with all this colour, base coat of this colour, it's 2 coats of this colour, and it's got its texture on it. And any high spots that I think that could be potentially dangerous, like maybe that there, or you could hurt yourself on it. What I'll do is I do want to leave quite a lot of texture, but I don't want too many high spots. I'll get to that with a sander. Just a piece of sandpaper, not a sanding machine. Okay? Okay, so let's just have a quick recap. I mixed French linen, which is a beigey, greeny, it's quite a pale colour, and I mixed that with some florons, which gave me a grey, bluey green. I coated one coat, all the outside and the inside, with that colour. I then added clay, bentonite clay, to my paint, but I separated it out. I had one pot that I could use for the thickness and one just of the actual colour that was the undercoat. I applied it all with a scraper. I'm trying to think of the words. Applied it all with a scraper, and I added lots of texture. If I sometimes think I like that better than putting it on with a brush. With a brush, you're kind of stippling it on. It's a bit mishmash, where if you're just going straight down it, if you want more texture, all you need to do is, if this was your scraper, just do this and do the same sort of thing, and it'll give you peaks. But I think the smoothing on seems to give it a look, a layer of almost like it's plaster, as opposed to it's been stippled on and it's a bit kind of random. So I did that. I let that dry, and then what I did was I went back to the remainder paint with no thickener in it, and I added quite a lot of water to it, not too much, but it was loose, and I painted the whole thing all over again. That is what has happened to this piece. Now we're going to home in and really, really focus on what I'm about to do next. Is kind of like, I'm going to do this whole part in one section so that you've got it, and you can then, make it work on sides or tops or wherever you want to go. So my colours that I'm going to be using are Amsterdam Green, which is this colour, Furrow, so this limey green, Antibes Green. Antibes Green is this sort of appley green, Tilton, mustardy, sort of more mustardy yellow than the English yellow of Annie Sloan's, and Olive. Now, this one, Antibes Green and Furrow, I've put just a blob of each of these on my palette. Yeah, they're just there because they have no water added to them, because they're the ones that I want to put on over the top of all of this water. Now, first thing I'm going to say is, do this in an area that has got good ventilation. It'll dry well, but also put a plastic sheet down, or have a floor that you can wipe, or have a floor that Martin can wash. If you don't have a Martin, put a sheet down. Anyway, what I then did was I watered down all of my colours. So this is the Amsterdam Green. Can you see how runny it is? It's kind of the consistency of skimmed milk, like that. That one's like that. They're all my colours are really wet, and they're all the same. They're just all really watered down. Apart from, as I said, the Antibes Green and the Furrow. This here is a little bit of, I've had brain feed, Chateau Grey. I'll put that there because I thought that might work, but in the end I didn't use it, so that's why I haven't listed my colours. But if you're looking for something a little bit more muted, these are the ones you would use with yellow as opposed to these two here. Why am I doing it like this? Because if you think about back, if you do watch my inspiration, which is my own work, which is my inspo, which is really quite weird. How did I do the original one? There's a picture there again. How did I do that one? You can see me going through it. It's only those were back in the days where I was so nervous to do YouTube that I just did tiny little bits. Wasn't teaching anybody anything because I was still trying to teach myself, if I'm brutally honest. The way I did it last time was I had a green on the background, and I blended the grey, blue and the yellow together to get my green. That was how I got it green. There are some parts in that where for me, they're quite flat. And then I've done some quite, what I would say, consider now, although it's still a lovely piece, maybe a little bit slightly dodgy, sort of distressing in patches that doesn't really kind of flow the way I think furniture now in my head, kind of the way I was looking for. So I've kind of recreating what I did before, but in a much better way. I didn't have the texture on it either before as well. But as I said, if you're working on a really cheap piece of furniture, and I'm not saying IKEA is really cheap, I'm just saying I think this might not even be IKEA. I think it's even a downgrade from IKEA. I think if you're working on cheaper furniture, I think by putting texture onto them, it instantly gives them a bit more meat. They look more substantial. They have the appearance of looking heavier. They have the appearance of looking older. Just remember, as I said, just get rid of all the telltale signs, any shiny metal, anything that you don't quite think, that's kind of telltale sign on that. So that's what to do with that. So how are we going to put this together? This is when you can start to play with things. Oh, and what I did was this morning, just to recap for Fern, sorry, something wrong with my mouth today. Fern, who was asking about texture. Fern, this is not coming off. This texture is on for absolute good. What I've did was I quickly gave a sand to any high points I didn't like. And if there's any big loose parts, they will fall off then. This is all on for good. It's not coming off. There is something in the, I'm not a molecular scientist, but there is something when you add the clay and the paint and you put it onto furniture, it's not coming off. In fact, this is one of the most sturdiest, robust things you can do to furniture. Because Fern was asking, was it the sealer that kept it all together? No, that's not what's happened here. It's just set on the furniture and it's set for good. So mixing this all together. Now, I've already done the top half, and another top tip is it's not so relevant. If you're doing a blendy blend, I would always start at the top just in case there's any drips coming down, and you will always catch them when you're blending that into your piece. With this piece, it's completely different because there are lots of drips and runs, but I still did it the same way. So I've already done the top. I'm still not cleaned the glass. The inside of the glass has been run over, the outside, but I have one of these and we'll get to this because it just comes off like that. It's such a simple process that why would you go to the bother of all that taping? So carrying on what I was doing up the top, and I've decided in my infinite wisdom on my original piece, I came back and I palette knifed. See, I've obviously always been a fan of a bit of a palette knife. I palette knifed some just here and there parts of burgundy, but this one, the burgundy is going to actually play quite a larger part. I think I'm going to bring some burgundy up with a palette knife and maybe some burgundy over from the side, just give it a little bit of movement, and I might put some gold leaf on that. I am not sure yet. So there is no rhyme or reason for this. I would have a cloth ready, a water spray because you might want it to move, but literally now it's just playing with the paint and having some fun. So is there any particular brush that you think I'm going to have to open inside my my doors, off camera? I'll get that. But is there anything in particular that I've also got a little artist brush here. It doesn't really matter which colour you dip it in, but you just want to kind of do something a lot down in here as well. You don't want to get too much of this. I mean, I'm building up quite a lot of. So I've got the green on. I want to kind of take some of that back, but I want to take it up to where I've already been because I don't want it to look. You're kind of looking for, if you look you can see some of the grey in it, the grey-green. I'm leaving that because that gives it another look of it's been plastered. There's layers, there's something peeking underneath that. You can see there where the texture is. You can see some lovely texture there. But when I stand up later on, I'll show you. I've got some really nice crackle up the top. Crackle's an amazing thing. Sometimes it just happens. So what I'm going to add next to this, I've got various different brushes. I'm just kind of going through. So let's have a wee go here with maybe some of this yellow. I'm going to bring this down here. I'm going to start some yellow patches over here. You don't need to work very quickly with this finish either, because I'm just going to put a bit of water in that and give it a wee bit of run. Because there's so much water to it that it's okay. This is me going in with the olive. Now, the olive is a completely different colour. It looks completely different on these colours. Bring some of that down here. Now, I'm going to go into the actual, the paint on my palette, which is the Antibes Green. And I'm going to start bringing some of that. And I'm not cleaning my brushes in between this. I'm going to come back and fix this big drip up here. And really what I'm doing, I can get into these sides, the sides I can see, but I would take an artist brush along the insides of that. You've got enough water and enough movement now on your brush. Now you don't want to end up too one colour. So if you think that's maybe what's happening, because you're not going for a sort of camel print here. It's, you know, there is rhyme and reason to it in a sort of weird, sort of strange way. I'm now going to take some of the furrow. The furrows very does this kind of similar job to the a little bit like the yellow, because it's obviously the yellowier one of the two. Bring that up under here. If you think you want a little bit more movement on it, this is why I'm saying do it on a sheet and just let it move. And this is just, it's not frottage because we're not melding them together. I'm just using the cloth to stop some of the drips. I don't want it too drippy, but I do want drips, if you know what I mean. It's a very fine line. There is no real way, I don't think, to kind of teach this. I think the way to do it with things like this, I want quite a dark section down this edge. So I'm just going to go all the way down. Again, your artist brush is going to come into play for things like this, because you don't want it all a big grey seam coming, a grey-green seam coming down there. So let me just fix these first before I go any further. I can fix all the bits that I miss off camera because I'm at a kind of quirky angle. So I'm going in here with just the unwatered down. There's so much water on my brush that I'm not really needing much more than this. Any more than this, and it's just going to be a messy, runny mess all over the floor. And that will mean Martin's got way more to tidy up, won't it, Martin? Mm-hmm. It's not that I don't tidy up, I do, but I'm doing something and Martin says, I'm just going to tackle this floor out here. And before I know it, he's been out and he's cleaned it all up and he's done it. So he quite often gets to jobs before I do. So, and when he's doing that, I am actually doing other things. I've got a disclaimer here. And we're back in here with the dark. I quite like that sort of grey patch there, so I'm not going to cover it. I think it's just one of those things where I don't know if I'm translating this or you're getting it through what I'm trying to show you, but I think the best way to do with anything like this is, if you are unsure and you're not quite confident, is just get an old board. Practice on a board. I'm just going to do something like that as well, and that kind of gets in here. I don't want it too limey either. You know, there is that, you start to know what the kind of look you're looking for. And once I get a bit more done down here, I'm just going to...
And if you're a channel member, there's, if you haven't seen it already, there's a new video up for channel members where they'll, goes into detail on that concept of practicing on boards.
Oh, layers. It's on layers.
Techniques.
It's not a piece of furniture I'm doing. It is actually. It was 3 nested tables that I turned into wall art, but I got Martin to just cut the legs off them. But I was trying to get, the concept of layering over, how to layer, because layering comes into furniture art all of the time. And you'll see, I mean, so far, this is just the beginning. I'm just at the beginning of this, but I think there's going to be quite a few more layers. But you can see what I'm doing. I'm just playing with this. Now it's starting to look a little bit like a saturated mess down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little bit of this and a little bit. I don't particularly like this too much of the olive. I'm just going to kind of dry that off a bit so that I can put a bit more dark in there. in here like that. But I do think down this bottom area is going to be quite covered with the, I'm going to do some yellow around here. Oh man, look at the floor.
It's all right.
But yeah, the layering video is quite good. It's quite interesting. You can see now. Can you see this? That is not good. That is not what you're aiming for. This and this. This is that thing that I'm saying. It can look like camel print. You have to kind of do something. I think it's because I haven't been as high as that yet. Just kind of let them meld together. I think I want a sort of dark edge under here as well. I'll wipe that back. I'm whispering, I'm obviously concentrating. There's paint dripping from somewhere. So this is what I mean about cleaning the glass. There's no point cleaning the glass. But when you are putting the texture on, avoid the glass as much as possible, because it is, when you add the clay, very difficult to get off of things, glass included. So, because if I sometimes want to paint glass, I'll add a little bit of clay to my paint. So, because I know it'll get rid of that slick surface and it sticks really well. Now, I'm kind of patting away here. I'm really liking this area here. This area here needs, I think, a little bit more, maybe just furl down here. And because it's wet, because we're working on wet, it kind of, I'm not having to do much because I'm not blending them. I'm mixing them up beside each other. I'm not having to do that much to do this because it's wet. Do I want a bit more grey coming through there? Yeah. So this is what I am doing. Really, I'll do a little bit more just so you've got the concept. But there is no real concept. It's just playing with the paint. That's a bit yellow. I want a bit more green. I'm just going back and forward. Now, once I've got it too light, I start to go, right, well, I'm going to need a bit more dark in there. I'm just going to put a wee bit of light there. So now I'm going to go back into the dark again. Just remember those edges, and if you can't get into them, get an artist brush. So I'm labouring the point a little bit more on this because this is going to set the scene for the whole thing, really. Again, that's getting a little bit wet and sort of muddy down there. I think you can tell the difference between wet and muddy. Like this here looks like it's on purpose. It has been done this way. This here, can you see down the bottom, just looks like a muddy mess. And the trick is, because it's all running down there, is to take some of it away with your cloth and then go back and rework it so it's not so wet looking and not as muddy looking. That is, I quite like this big patch of the darker green down here, so I might leave that and then move on maybe to a bit more yellow. So let's just, I'll put some of this yellow. My colours, I'm going to go in with the olive because the olive is the one that is the kind of beigey one. And I'm going to need my artist brush for in these gaps. Do I want a lot of runs in it? I think the runs is optional, and it's certainly up to you what you want to do. If you want a lot of runs on your furniture, run away and just go for it. But I'm having some, but not huge. I've already done the sides of this piece, and I found the sides quite tricky to stop just continually running. So I was going back up and I was doing quite a lot of wiping with my cloth to make sure that it didn't end up looking, again, that's looking a little bit like a muddy mess down there. So let's just kind of do something like that. Yeah, I'm going to go back in with the furl now. So I think I'm conscious that this is really important and I do not want to skip over this, but also I don't want to spend too long going on watching you do the same thing. I think you can kind of get what I'm saying. You know, it's one of those situations where it's the only way you're really going to know is if you get some paint. Now, what I will say about the paint is you do not need that much. I only had a spoonful of each colour, and it's done all of this. I mean, I probably did 1 spoonful to maybe 3 spoonfuls of water, 4 spoonfuls of water even, because I did it and then I added more water again. I mean, it's so runny, but you don't need much paint. So, okay, this has been quite a good piece, really. Although there's been a lot of areas to paint, it's been quite good because obviously I'd mixed up my first mix and you saw how much I started with. I didn't need any more after that because my last lot was watered down, not like this, kind of maybe for what I had left, maybe 1 part the same of water. It was, I mean, you can see the floor, it was quite wet, but it wasn't dribbling like this. It was just moist so I could go, because I wanted to, the reason why I did that was just so you're aware, is because it then gets in behind all of the texture. You're not only second coating your piece and sealing it and adding more texture with your brush strokes, then you're actually getting your texture, you're getting into all your texture with more of a moist paint. When your paint's thicker, it's just hitting over the top of the surface, so it's good to kind of do that. I am going to finish this patch here, down here, and then we're going to open up the doors because I want to do something in the inside. And I think probably with the inside, I might just do a sort of watered down wash with, because I do really like the Chateau Grey. It is a nice greeny grey and it might work. And I think what I'll do is I'll maybe add some white to the centre, make it look kind of almost dirty up into the the corners, crevices. Ginny will be laughing at that. Just in all of the areas where dust might have settled, because it has got the shelves as well. So the shelves, I might do a mix of the Chateau Grey and a white in the sort of centre. But we're only really just getting off the starting blocks with this one. There's still quite a lot to do, and there's a transfer as well, which is one of those ones that I'm cutting up into tiny little sections. So it's quite a lot to do still. So I'll get on and do this. I'll start prepping the inside, and I think what I might do is I might do what I did before. I might do half of the inside and then from the shelf down show you the inside there, so that we're kind of still working in this sort of area. Okay, so I've got the Chateau Grey just from the can. I've got some white on here because that's kind of me playing the part of like kind of muting it up, and I've just got some water. Martin might be able to give you a wee kind of shimmy up above. That's what we're aiming for. We're aiming to still keep some of the blue, but a sort of cloudy, sort of oldie, sort of worldy, sort of kind of look up the top. I am going to do in and around the edges with a sort of cornflower mix, but I'm just getting this down first. How am I doing it? It's pretty simple. I'm putting plenty of water. I'm dipping my paint in my brush and I'm adding plenty of water because I want it to move. I don't think you can have too much water at this point. Just making sure that you've got enough that your paint's going to move when you start to put your white on. I'll just do this section here just now. Now I have to continue this from the above part. I've actually got some water here, and I think maybe the process might be slightly quicker if I just do something like this. So I'm just kind of getting a sort of putting my Chateau Grey around the edges. I'm dipping in the water again, make sure I've got plenty of paint that can make it run. This is optional. You can just pick a colour that you think is going to work nice and just paint it 2 coats like I did last night. But I wanted to have something, when the glass is all cleaned and the transfer's on, I want something nice to look at. Big brush, again, nice and wet. I'm just slightly dipping it in this water here, and then literally what I'm doing, because I've got enough water on it, is I'm kind of, this is just about manipulating the paint really now. I don't want it to go too far into the edges, and I want a little bit more sort of white in the middle. You're not really going to see much of this when the shells go into it, but I just want to finish it nice. I just want to have a nice finish on it, and that's all I'm literally doing. A little more white here, I think. And I'm just kind of I'm not blending it together really either. I'm kind of keeping some patches the way it is, but my brush is going all the different ways so that it ends up like this. Sides, I'm just doing exactly the same. Bring it up, making sure that you get it up into, if you've got any like one shelf that sticks, because that one there won't come out. Again, I'm going to have to take an artist brush to go around in all of my hinges to make sure that all of that blue, it's not like it's just had a bad paint job over the top of it. So the sides are practically the same way. Plenty of water so that you can make your paint move. Little dip in the white, and just kind of up the center of that and kind of bring it out to the edges. That's all I'm doing. The same with the door frames. I'll just show you a patch here. So remember I'm doing here as well, because you've got to make sure that part there, because you don't want big patches of blue. You don't want the bluey green, but you do want to make sure that it that it is shining through a little bit, but just a little bit. I'm going to bring this up to this part here now. With panels like this, all I'm going to do is dip in the white and just give myself a little bit of sort of movement in the middles of, and it's just kind of finish off the look. This is just about having fun and getting a sort of kind of blend together. You kind of like, don't worry about the glass. Glass is going to be cleaned. So that is all I'm doing to the inside. It's just going to complement the outside. Why did I put 2 coats of this in the blue? Well, A, I wanted the blue to shine through, but B, because it is a cheaper piece of furniture, you just need to make sure that everything is eradicated. You don't see any of it. If I dip in here with my Chateau grey, I can get in here and in and around all my parts, just to make sure that, like all the parts of my hinges, just to make sure that they're all done too. And I can see up the top where I need to go back up and do there too. I haven't done up in there with my artist brush yet, but just make sure that you're eradicating any traces of the pine. That's all we're doing. Okay, so once I've done this, I'm going to close the doors again. I'm going to dry it off with a heat tool at the bottom so I can close the drawers. And what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start cleaning off the glass. Okay? Okay, so I was trying to get Matt to stand back a little bit just so you can kind of get a rough idea of how it looks now it's dry. I've got a little bit of work still to do on the inside, but I'm going to move on to getting the transfer on.
Oh, okay.
I was watching Matt and trying to get on it, balance on a stool. How did I clean the glass? I showed you this before. These are really good. They're really cheap and they clean glass perfectly. So I kept this tiny little bit up here just to show. Don't scrape your glass this way, because this little edge here will take your paint off in there. Go up, go towards your paint like this. So for example here, it's a bit noisy. That's how you get rid of any of your paint. And that, the thing is, I'm not being lazy when I say taping it off is a lot of hassle. If you spend days on end on pieces of furniture, you don't mind a little bit more, but it never ever for me does just exactly gets it right into the edge. And you want to get it right into the edge. You don't want any of that horrible pine showing. So getting it right into the edge is more important to me. And I find that in the process of that, this is a quicker process. What do I do then? I have a bucket behind me with fairy liquid, just washing up liquid. This is fairy. with a little bit of cider apple vinegar, and then just clean. I hadn't cleaned the glass when I started this piece because I knew what was going to happen to it. So this is it. This is the degreasing element of cleaning the glass. Try not to saturate too much in there because you will reactivate the chalk paint. It's not been sealed. So, and then what I do is if you just get some thin paper, I've been using these parts here, and just dry the glass off with the brown paper or the white paper in this. My mum always used to clean her windows with paper, and it's just something that's stuck. And if you add a little bit of apple juice in with your fairy liquid, it really cuts through the grease. Now I have done the other side, and I might have to go kind of once over off camera with this one. But that's all you do, and you should have nice, shiny, grease-free glass. You might need to get your nail into some parts, but does that look quite good? Now, once you've done that, because we're going to be applying a transfer onto the glass, I have methylated spirits. It just takes another level. If there is any grease left over, a wee rub over with this just preps it ready for the transfer with alcohol, rubbing alcohol. That just makes it nice and sticky. So I'll just do this one as well because we're going to be doing these two. Now, I've kept you going all this time and I haven't even told you what transfer I'm using, but if you've already had a sneak peek at my piece before, you'll know. There we go. So I'll just get all this out of the way. But yeah, mess is really good for prepping mirrors and glass for when you're going to put transfers on. Not that you ever have any problems sticking transfers to glass or mirrors. Yeah, you have to be really, really careful. Now, today we're going to be using IOD Designs Ode to Henry Fletcher. Now, this is a retired one, but you can still get it. Well, you certainly can in the UK. But any transfer, I mean, when I do tutorials, people quite often message me and say, what did you do there and what paint did you do there? And I think you know me enough to know now that it doesn't matter what I've used. You could use any greens, you can use any transfer. Don't have to put texture on. You don't have to put a transfer on. You can just cut out decoupage paper. You can stencil onto your glass. This is just a beginning way of me recreating from my own inspiration and how to make cheaper end furniture look more expensive. So now we're going to have a bit of a problem with this one because if you've ever seen it before, it's an urn. So that's the bottom part there with the urn. And these are flyaways, the kind of wispy bits. Now, in my usual sort of nonsense, I've decided that I want a piece here, 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 and on the top. So I sat last night, and I showed you this before when Martin did his table. If you're new to my channel, the lovely Martin has a table tutorial, which he did a really good job of, but at the time off camera, I was trying to work out to show Marty how you would cut it up, and this is the way I hit upon, so I thought this might be helpful with this one. So this whole transfer is really going to be cut up into pieces. Where did I think I was going to go there? I'm going to take this down here and just come across here like that. Now, you have to be kind of careful. We'll see this area here. So that's one piece there. So this is going to work in one piece. Now, I thought here I'd go across here like that and just make the other part look like glass. So that's one piece there. Now the trick is putting this all back together in a way that it's going to actually work, but I've been doing this long enough. I think the video that you are going to see, if you see my inspo one, I think that was the first time I applied such a big amount of transfer down the front, and I was worried about it, but I don't know whether I come. You'll see in the video. I mean, this is all about. This video is about my inspo and journeys, furniture painting journeys. But you'll see how far I've came because I was thinking about it. I was looking at the video myself and thinking, but what colour? What did I do there? I missed so much out, and I think that's why the format is the way it is with Made by Marley, because I want to actually show people, and that's why they go on for about 3 years. Right, so you've seen me cut that one up, but the problem part is really going to be when it comes to the urn, which is the second last page here. Because with all the best will in the world, I'm not really wanting, or am I? Am I wanting the urn?
You can have both halves of the urn.
I'm not actually going to use. I don't think I'm going to use the urn because it won't be in context if it's just them bits flying in the middle of anywhere. If there was an urn to start with, because there's a gap between here and here, so you've got to think of your positive, negative spaces. So I'm going to do something like this. Now, please at home, I will use this urn on something else. I'll use it in some sort of collage. I'm just going to go round it first. If you want to deconstruct transfers, I think I have a video on that, Matt, do it. I think there is a.
Yeah.
I think there is a. I'm just going to get rid of this flyaway one first.
I'll link it above.
I've kind of digressed here. I just want to take these because I want these in the design, but I want to keep the urn. So what I can do with this is I can apply this onto a frame, onto a backboard of a frame, and I can do my own collage in this urn. So don't ever bin anything. I just cut this up as well because I'm probably going to use those. Not that. Not that. Now, this is where it's going to get a little bit exciting, I would imagine. You've got to remember if it's coming down from edges. So I am going to do something like this. Because I know that other half of that red flower is somewhere else. And I am just going to take this round here like this. And yeah. Now that's given me another good chunk of flowers. And I've obviously decided to take this one off here because that's where my pen marks are. Now, this is the bit that I want to try and explain. When you apply anything that you've deconstructed, if I just put that on like that, this isn't too bad because it's got these parts here. So it does have slight movement. But the difference between, and I'll just show you this and this. This is kind of like flyaways and it's got movement, lots of gaps. This is quite condensed. And the trick when you deconstruct something is to put the condensed back on, but take some of the flyaways as well, so it all is then sort of kind of cohesive. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to be bold and we'll do this part up here on camera. Maybe we'll get Matt to come back in a wee while and come and do this one as well. I will show you as we go along. I know it's a little bit of a grease mark there. So let's deal with some of the parts that I've already cut out. Yeah, I think that's the best way to kind of do it. Now this one works okay because it's got flyaways. This one is too condensed, but we don't really want to waste any more or cut any more up, really. So I'm going to do this and take that bit, and I can use that bit somewhere else. And I'm going to start pretty much, oh, I can put that red part back in up in the corner. Right. So let's just get rid of this because it'll make it more manageable. Now, if you've never used a transfer before, just take your time on this part. Wondering whether I really want it to go this way, so I want this to come in here like that. I'm going to have to lose a little bit there, just a tiny bit. So I'm just taking this part off. Keep every single part because you might have little parts that you need to fill in. So make a little pile of those. And let's just kind of dry fit this again. I really want that to kind of come up onto this edge, right? Okay, let's just go for it. Be bold. Now remember, they stick like glue. So when it comes to committing, commit.
No second chances.
No second chances.
No second chances or moving.
No, you can't move it once it's on.
Don't try and lift it to move it. If it's stuck, leave it there.
Did you not put a transfer on? And
yeah.
I can't remember. It's just glass in particular and mirrors are, they're a total beast. It's not like doing a piece of wood or. And the thing about glass is you don't need to seal it either. So let's just see how we're doing here. Get it up into these edges. Oops. I'll be there. I'll just stick up on top of my furniture. It should be relatively quite quick to do as well because it's quite quick on glass as well. Now, do I want, where did that one come from? Just want to make sure if this is a necessary evil. I think I quite like that little bit, so I'm just going to, I'm not actually sure if that's where it came from, but that's where it's gone back to. Right, now, you've got this little part in here which I don't like, so I'm just going to go back to this little part here that we cut away, which has actually come back off its back. So I'm just going to do something like this and cut this into a separate flower. Put this little part back down onto the plastic. And I'm just going to do something like that up into there to make it look like there's a flower in front of it. And then with no gap. Burnishing. Yeah, I need to burnish. Now when this is all done, you can do it two ways. You can leave it and make it a decor item that people just dry dust, or you can seal it. I've done both before, so it's whatever floats your boat. Right, okay, so this is the, can you feel that? Can you hear that? Sorry, that was a little air pocket in there, so just make sure there's no air pockets in it, especially when it's a large piece like this. Air pockets can sit behind it. You don't want any of that. Now, I just want a little bit of movement now. So let's have a look and see what I've got here. I think maybe we can use this part here. I don't think that I am going to be able to get, because I've got quite a lot of surface area, 2 pieces of furniture out of this one transfer. It breaks my heart when that happens, but I just don't think so. However, we are trying to raise the bar when it comes to, don't worry too much about little parts coming over. You're not worrying about that. Just tuck it up on the side. You can always...
Sorry. Getting too close, sorry.
Too close again, Matt. You're too close. Just put those parts on first. See those parts? Yeah, get rid of those first so that you're not worrying about them. Now, once over to make sure that it's not going anywhere. Not that it's going anywhere in glass anywhere. And then just start. Oh, you don't want that to happen. Too much gusto. If that does happen, it's not the end of the world. Just stick it back down and just carry on. Oh, well, maybe not as many times as I'm doing it. Let's have a wee look-see here. See if it. Any little parts that you've not got, just go back over again. There we go. Now, let's give this a wee. If you feel it's a bit of the design that was kind of a remnant from the other part, just use your nail and get rid of it. Now, you can see what I've done already. This was the flowers from the urn. Well, no longer. Now, do we want something? Got this little flower here, and I'm wondering whether, are we having, yeah, let's just pop that in there, and it's a little part that is going to fill that piece of negative space there. So again, bring that up on top, up in that grave on your furniture first. So you can see condensed shapes here. I'm going to have to find something to heat for here because this is a little bit too put together. So let me just have a wee look, and I'll finish off this part, and then I'll go away and do the rest, and I'll come back and I'll do this one again, just so you can see my mind cut things up. Always when I'm on camera, stick it back down, it's not the end of the world. And there you go. And then just give it a good old burnishing, especially with that happened to it. Now, something wee that can come out of here, and I think I'm just going to do something like, I think I can sacrifice this bud. The only thing is I'm going to have to take it right down to there. Oh, nearly cut it in half. I was doing a live last night, and I was doing a hummingbird on camera, and I went to cut it out and I cut his beak off. So yeah, I'm going to have to improvise on that beak now. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm making very little move a lot. That's the name of the game of deconstructing. It's just like a kind of like a fancy jigsaw that you're putting back together, and you're putting it on a way that, you know, pleases you. An urn wasn't going to work for this piece, but the one that I did before, I did put the urn on the bottom, but I was slightly brave, and you can see I did do quite a lot of cutting up in the last one, but not as much as this. Right, okay. We can clean it again once we're done. But do I want another? I'm just one more minute, Martin. Sorry. 3 hours later, I'll get jumping.
I was just going to say, I think looking back, you know, that piece was the piece that
it was the piece that put me on the map.
really started everything, wasn't it?
It was the piece that people, like other furniture artists, like my furniture painting peers who I know really well now, started to comment on. It sold instantly, and it just yeah, that, and I did a Peenie's stamp dresser. I didn't do a video on it. It was one of my most loved pieces. I did that as well, and those were the pieces. There's been pivotal pieces along the way that have, like, there's been times where I've done things and then I was picked up by IOD. You know, it's just been a journey. But there's certain pieces of furniture along the way that have been ones that I can look at my Instagram account and go, wow, that was one of those ones that just went like that, or that was one that sold like that. And still now I have those, but I think that sometimes you become not less grateful, because I'm totally grateful, but you can become quite immune to it, because sometimes with the likes of YouTube, it's every week, and I think that sometimes it's good to go back and look at where you started from. And although I'm quite embarrassed watching that video, thinking I didn't really teach anything, I was very, well, this is what I'm doing. It was more like, well, this is what I'm doing, just watch me as a vanity exercise, as opposed to this is what I'm doing, and I'd really like for you all to do something like it. It's a difference.
I think you were quite like nervous as well about doing it.
I never wanted to do YouTube. It was never part of my life plan. I worked in schools up until COVID, teaching pottery. So this was never going to be the way that it ended up. But COVID changed a lot of people, and it changed an awful lot of people's lives in a horrible, horrible way. But in our world, it was more like, well, what can we do? What can we pivot to? And I could paint furniture, and I had been doing crafts, but people suddenly, with YouTube as well, weren't that bothered about a craft. But suddenly people started to get involved when I did furniture, and it just grew and grew and grew. And in the world's sort of cycle, it's not been a long period of time. I mean, it feels like it is when you have, like, for the first year I had about 4 subscribers, but it's a journey. And I think furniture art is a journey, and I think you gain confidence, you try new things. There is nothing now that I don't think I would tackle. I go, oh, well, I probably could do that, or I've already done it before. And I think because I've been doing furniture anyway, it just became oh, well, I'm going to do this, and it worked. And you can make a business out of doing furniture, but furniture painting is not easy, Martin, is it? It's not an easy.
No,
it's not an easy job. It's a hard job. It's a long-hour job. There's a lot of heavy lifting. There's a lot of traveling around. But for me, I don't know. Martin maybe give you his take, but for me, my love is painting, so it doesn't really feel like work. But like all jobs, there's bits that you don't like. I don't like all of the more technical stuff and things like that, but the love of painting is there, so it's not hard work to me. But Martin loves computers, but I wouldn't always say that he loves everything he does on the computer.
I wouldn't say I absolutely love editing, but you know, I'm okay at it. So
it takes Martin so long to edit things as well. It's but the journey is there. You go back, watch the video, Martin will link it, and you can see the journey and how. And I hope. I mean, I'm hoping at the end of this that I'll prefer this one better than the other one. But I mean, who knows? Because the other one is one of the most kind of like things I think I have on Pinterest. It just hit the money. I think it was the greens. It was the way I've done it. I don't know. But this was an amalgamation because it wasn't just could I do it better. It was my inspo. It was mine anyway, what I'd done. But it was more, could I show the lovely lady Fern how to put texture on? And could I make a really cheap piece of furniture look $1 million? Well, we'll see.
And you've been looking for an excuse to use this transfer again as well. So
I have another thing as well. I have never used this transfer since that piece. I mean, there's one I'll go back to all the time, which is the IOD wallflower transfer. But in the majority of cases, if I've used it once, I won't use it again. And because I never want my furniture to look samey. So I do that thing where, and because I jump around, and I'm probably best known for a sort of Indian finish anyway, not so much these sort of looks, but yeah, a whole trip and journey. I could spend a whole YouTube video just telling you all about the journey, all the highs, all the lows, all the way, and then so it's a trip. But here I am now, and Martin's with me, and Martin we decided to work together, and we'd always wanted to work together.
Yeah,
it had always been something we'd really wanted to do, and here we are. We work together because we could never think of things that we could have skills in that we could work together with. But there you are.
Turns out it was here all along.
And it turns out all it needed was an old set of drawers. Right, okay. I'll crack on with. I'll do the top parts with this deconstructed transfer. And we'll come back and we'll finish this one. I'll try and be quite quick if I can. Okay, before we put in any more transfers, I'm just going to get Martin to show you what's happened. So I've deconstructed it completely and put it on the top. And if you think of movement coming down and up, movement's really important when you stand back from something. How does it move? So this is, and up the top it's moving as well. It's not flat across, one flat. And you can make it move by using the dense transfers and taking off the little flyaways that are less dense and adding them on. And that helps the flow, the movement. Yeah. Now, I just have this section down here, which I said I'd come back to. Getting through the transfer now. So this is what pretty much, this pile here that I'm keeping to use again. I don't know about what's left over, but I thought I might do, I sat these here because I thought this might look quite good here. When you cut away and deconstruct a transfer, you have to be really careful because there's not much to hold on to and your fingers can stick to it really easily. So be careful with that. I want to put that on there like this. My movement's going to go up and down again. So I'm putting this on here. It's been relatively quick. The hardest part of this is when you really are deconstructing a transfer, you don't want to lose any, you don't want to waste any, so you maybe better taking your time to get it, you know, and that's why I used the Sharpie, because it gave me a chance to, I just sat at the kitchen table and just had a good look at it to see where I was going to make my cuts, and that's probably a good way of doing that. Just remember and give it a good burnish onto the glass, especially around those edges because you're cutting off the halo. Right, now I thought, because my movement's kind of going up, I thought I might put this coming down here. There's not much I can do about these little sort of fronds behind here. I'm just keeping them on. That's what I think about that. I want my movement to kind of be like this. So again, making sure it's on, using the little transfer stick. I have loads of transfer videos. If this is the first video you ever see with a transfer, but I very much doubt it will be. But yeah, I've done all sorts of things. Just making sure I get this little all the wee parts right into the edges. Like that. Now, I didn't really sort of almost rehearse this side, so let's just think I want this to be my movement to come. So I'm just being bold now. Now the next thing, once I put this on, is I'll stick them on, and then that way you can have a good idea of what I think I might have this coming sort of down. I'm going to have to put this one on so I can show you. But next thing, once I've done this, I'm going to open the cabinet back up. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do and put a little bit of distress in at the edges. I'm going to go away off camera, and I'm just going to use the, I've used so many paints this week. I'll come back to you on what colour the shelves is going to be. But the shelves is going to be the same sort of colour as the inside, the darker colour that I used. But I've had a minute. I've had a brain fade moment. Mark, can you remember? No.
Was it French paint?
No.
Olive?
No, it was the one that I didn't really use in the beginning blade. It doesn't matter. I'll tell you in a minute what I'm going to use, because I need to go and paint my shelves, do my distress inside, and then I want to come back and I want to put on the burgundy, and I'm not quite sure how that's all going to go down. At this point in time, if you're happy with it, you don't have to come on and put any more extra distress. That's okay. You don't have to do that. You know, it's just me. I think it'll kind of lift it, make it look more aged, gives it a few more layers. And I might do some palette knife. I noticed when I did my original, which is my inspo, I don't tell anybody this. I mean, this is the thing. That's why I think, what was the point of it? Because it didn't really show anything really in particular. But I've noticed that I put some white sort of palette knife. I did say I go around putting distress on, but it could have been any colour. But I had to kind of study it to go, right, well, what did I do? So I think I might put some white on. White's going to help our eye rest in this, and there's white in the transfer as well. So that kind of, sorry, Martin, I'm talking and not doing the do.
What are you apologising to me for?
I don't know. I'm just like, I realised that I'd kind of stopped and you're filming away, and I'm just. Be careful when you put a deconstructed one together, because remember, this is the transfer and this is the plastics. You don't want to start gouging in here. So this is why I'm working a little bit slower up here, because it would be such a shame if you got this. I mean, you could take a little part that you cut off from somewhere and fix it, but it's good if you don't have all the fixes. There we go. Now, one last one. What have I got left? I'm kind of running out now, so I think maybe, because I quite like this, but that makes them all red, so I'm going to go with the yellow and just bring this in from, I wonder if I can make this go, I think I'm going to try and make this yellow one come from beside the rose as well. Let's see if we can do this. Remember now, you can't commit because it's so sticky, so you have to be really careful. And that makes it look like it's another branch coming possibly from behind it. So you don't need to be deterred if you have a transfer and it doesn't meet quite what you're wanting to do with it, or you want to try and make it go across a bigger surface. You don't have to get them out of the packet and stick them together in the way that the back of the packet says. I don't think you should. I think you should try and be as creative with it as possible, because then that way your furniture really is unique. It's not, okay, there's loads of furniture with this transfer on it, but not lots of furniture with this transfer on it, all deconstructed in this way, which makes it, you know, unusual, different, quirky. I don't know all the other things that people use to describe my furniture. Weird, I don't know. Right. So, oh, I'm losing my patience now. Now be careful with that part there that butts up against the rose, because as I said, you don't want to be scraping and gouging anything out here. Gently, gently, gently. Oh, did you see that halo there? It was kind of... Now, I think maybe, which I'll go and do off camera, I think maybe I could do with something down here. I had a great big yellow, oh, I think I applied it up there. I think I just want something now now it's too arced. So I need to have something coming up from here to make it coming out from this. No. Okay, I'll go way off camera and work out, and I'll show you what I did. Maybe put some of these, yeah, I'll put some of these down the bottom. So I'll go and do that. We'll open up the cabinet. I'll start showing you what I'm going to do with I'm just kind of, I mean, this is, you don't have to go to these lengths. You really don't. You could leave it just as is. You didn't even need to go and put the colour inside, but I think probably what I'll do is I'll maybe do a little bit of brown in the edges at the back. I'll tell you the colour that I'm going to be painting the shelves as well. And then we'll get to the burgundy distress, and then we will be getting to the point of sealing. Now, sealing. I would really like to wax this, but I'll tell you why I won't be waxing it. When something has glass, yes, you can, no problem, wax it and then just clean it off. But I've got all this transfer around here now, and I don't want to have a lot of grease in between my transfer or anything like that. I want to try from now, this point on, to keep it as clean as possible. So what I will be doing is the best of both worlds. I'll be sealing this with my French Chic Tough Top Coat Sealer, I can never say it. But I'll use an artist brush to get down in here so that this is sealed. I'll seal it because my original inspo piece, I used a lot of wax. In fact, I used an awful lot of wax. Martin and I watched it together and we were laughing. He said nothing changes, to the point where I'm saying, and I'm just going to grubby it up. It looked like it'd been trailed through a midden. It was so dirty. So I thought, well, okay. But this time round, I'll delicately do. But I still want to come back with a palette knife and put some burgundy on it. I still want to do this. I think it's just going to make it work, and a little bit of white. But I can only do so much at once, so I'll go and do away some of these things just now. So I've got some Honflower, which is brown paint. I've watered it down again. It's very watery, just a tiny little bit, and I just watered it down. I'm just running it in my seams, and what I'm doing is, so around these sort of hinges, for example, I'm just running it off it, and then just kind of like just aging around all the edges. That's all I'm doing here. I mean, I was going to skip showing you this, but it's just to kind of finish off and make inside as kind of old looking as we're trying to make the exterior. It's just something nice, really. That's all I'm doing. So I'm just going to get on. I'm going to finish this off because most of it's done now, actually. And then I'm going to close the doors. I'm not going to get Martin to run away. I'm going to close the doors because I'm going to put on the red distress. Now, the red distress, or this much distress that I'm about to do to this, is optional. If it gives you the fear, don't do it. If you're at that stage where you're just starting out and you think, no, I'm going to ruin it, then don't do it. But if you are like me and you think it needs something else, then let's go for it. So I'm just going to close up the doors on this piece right now. There we go. I'll just move these. This is a very tall, thin cabinet. When you buy a tall, thin, it's not like buying a really heavy piece of heavy vintage tall cabinet. When you open two doors of a tall cabinet like this, it is likely to tip. It has two things, brackets, you can bracket into the wall to prevent that happening. But because I'm just painting it, I'm not bracketing it into the wall. So what I do is I use molds just to put underneath it. You can slip them in and out by whatever size you need to hold it up, and then that way you can work in it and it's going to be absolutely fine. But these are my two I've kept them like this all the time, my two sides. One and there was this one here that I needed this tiny little thin one on the top just to make it work so that it just doesn't tip. But as I said, it's got 2 brackets. Right, okay, what are we doing next? Okay, this is going to probably terrify some people, but it doesn't terrify me. So I was going to go and get a burgundy, but then I went to my paint, and this was some of the paint left over from the mould piece that I did recently with the, I can't remember what mould it was. It had peach in it, and this was a colour that I'd mixed up. I don't know why. Anyway, I've got it in a, this is the good thing about these little containers with the little lids. If you do mix up too much, you can store it for quite a good time, really. I mean, why waste paint? Paint is expensive. So I have multiple little tubs like this, but they always come in handy. So I was going to mix up a burgundy, but when I put this beside here, I thought, right, okay, it could be a little bit more burgundy, but I do think that it's going to work with it. So I'm going to go with this one. I could have added a little bit more red, or I could have added a little bit more burgundy to it, but this is what we're going with. I'm wondering whether it's too far away now I'm saying this. See, it felt, I tried it beside this one, but it's off when it goes beside this one. Don't know. No, we'll go with this. Now, I want to have it a little bit like quite thick and coming up the sides, kind of like this sort of area, and I'll bring it down from the top. So let's just, and I'm using this because I don't want the brush strokes. I want to run it across it, you know, like it would be either this or I would be using a palette knife. So got some nice texture on this already, so it should go on quite nice. So you don't want anything too heavy, but you want heavy and light. So let's just see if we can get this. I mean, I'm sure some people are terrified at this point in time, but sometimes things just need something. And obviously when I did this with my original piece, which is my inspo, I didn't have anything like this on it. I wasn't nearly as brave then. And that's another thing that's happened in that point in time. I've got quite brave about things. People always say I'm kind of a bit fearless, but I obviously, you know, when I started out, it wasn't that. I want this a bit thicker here. I want like there's no colour showing through. I think I've imagined this in my head, so I really want it quite thick down the bottom, coming across here, and then maybe run it from, I want it to come. It's just going to take a little bit of work, I think, to get it how I want it to be. But I think you kind of understand my, well, maybe you don't understand why I'm doing it, but I'm doing it because I want it to have that sort of distress. I'm wondering now.
It's also that layering thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know,
and
the more layers, the better.
Yeah, and you're right, Martin. And I think because it's got such a nice texture on it that it, if I was just to go along with a brush, it would just be stripes. But because there's so much texture on the piece that was put on in the same way that I'm dealing with this now, it kind of gives it something that it didn't have before. And you could have picked, if you've done green and you've got this on, you could have picked like a yellow, would have been quite nice, or like a real mustardy yellow. You could have picked a really dark red. You could even have went with a blue, because the blue would have complemented the green, white, pink. I mean, any of your colours you could have picked out. I just wanted something that was going to have quite a lot of impact. And this seemed to be what well, it wasn't, it didn't seem to be. I just found it in the cupboard, but
that'll do.
But no, I didn't go, that'll do, but I went, oh, but the only problem was I did come along and tried it on that flower up there, and maybe it should have had a little bit more of a red in it. But
I think the colour works. I'm sitting slightly further back than you, and I think it works.
Does it? I'm maybe a wee bit right now. This is the thing about furniture art. The furniture is quite big, and so you really have to wait till you go to the toilet, or not just necessarily the toilet, but you can get up and look yourself. But I kind of haven't. I kind of, when I'm in the stable, I sit way over at the stable door looking at my furniture. But when in the boot room, it's not that big, so I kind of wait till I go into the kitchen and come back and see if I'm happy. Yeah, I'm going to do something like this on this part down here. So you can see I haven't got it on that part here, but I have got it on this part here. I want to try and join this up a little bit more like I did over there. The trick is not to just make it look like too contrived. You do want it to look like it's doing something to the piece, yeah. And I think this is, I'm just going to do a wee bit more here on this edge. I have got quite a lot in the palette, but I don't want to, in this little tub, but I just don't want to pick it up too. A glippy bit there. That's going to add texture anyway. I'm not sure whether this finish had, this red had texture in it, but it was incredibly thick when I pulled it out. Oh, actually, that piece did have texture in it, didn't it?
It did.
Ah, right. Well, that's why this is so thick. Oh, there you go. Another layer of texture. Now, I am thinking that that is probably enough. I want this to kind of meet with this side here. I think that's enough for down the bottom, and literally I'm going to do the same up the top now. And then I'm gonna call it quits for today. I've been at this all day and yesterday, so I think maybe I'm gonna have an early night, watch Virgin River, chill out. Right, okay, so I think I prefer things like palette knives to brushes when you're doing something like this, because they make such interesting texture on it. If you did this with a brush, it wouldn't look anything like it. Next time you see this, when you come back tomorrow, it's just going to be all like this, because I'm like, oh, I really like this, but I'm trying to hold myself back the best of my ability. Okay, so this is day 3. I put my red on, and I really like it, and I do really like the distress on this. But what I've done is I've mixed up a little bit. If you use Annie Sloan paint, this is Emperor's Silk and some Hornflower, which has got me a really sort of dark red, which I think probably is more to this. Am I going to cover up what I've done? No, because I like it and it's a nice contrast, but I am going to just kind of just do some tone on the tone. So just tone on tone with this. It's just kind of offsetting some of this. That's all I'm going to do with this red. Just kind of put some on top of it, just to kind of give it another bit of dimension as well, because then you're adding, because it's the same family of paint, but it just giving it another little bit of something. So, but I'm not going anywhere where I haven't gone before. That sounds like a saw. So I'm just doing this on here. Now, you can imagine me doing that on the piece. Just a little bit, not a lot. You don't need to be going crazy. Now, let's just call it quits on that up here. Now, I'm just going to clean my palette knife with my little piece of cloth here. A wider, can I just recommend as well, a wider palette knife, or the spatula that I had yesterday would have probably been better, but I went into this is what I got first. Now, I have some original white here. Not going to do anything with the original white other than, this is not the same as the big areas. With the original white, you're just doing some here and there areas. So just some here and there areas is really not a, like you're not kind of trying to do big areas with this. Try and pick up somewhere. I mean, I wonder, Matt, could you home in on that crackle there? Can you see? I don't know whether you can actually see it.
Yep.
That's all natural. No crackle product was used for that. That was because I put the wet paint over my clay and it was quite thick underneath it, and it just sat in it and it was made thicker, and as it dried with some crackle. So all I'm doing now is just kind of giving it a bit of something. There isn't really a sort of way that I can say, well, it would look better here than there. I'm just kind of like deciding with my eye where I think I might want it. The trick is with this is just a little bit, because you don't want to end up looking like it's a Dalmatian dog, because it can happen that way, and suddenly you think, or a cheetah, or you're not trying to do anything like that. Now, Martin and I are still debating on the handles on this particular piece. But you can see, I mean, I can already see it. I came back this morning and I looked at it and I thought, wow. I mean, it really doesn't look like it was the cheap pine that it was. And I think that's what you're trying to do here. You're trying to do something that has eradicated what it once was. So just a little bit here. I always quite enjoy a corner piece of distress. I don't know why, it just tickles me in some way. And I think I had to kind of almost redeem myself for some of the distress that I did in the first piece. Not that it was bad, it's just that I think maybe my understanding is slightly better.
Journeys.
Yeah, it's change and growing and learning and becoming more confident. And I think this is not exactly, obviously, when you look at the first one, this is not anything like my other one. But remember, like all inspiration, you're taking something from that and you're making it your own. So it was my own piece to begin with, but I've just redone it for now, taking the inspiration from that, taking some of the colours, taking some of the techniques, and then translating that in a different way onto a cheap piece of furniture to make it look more valuable, I think is the takeaway from today. But yeah, I think it's just about learning and growing and getting your feeling comfortable, I think helps. I think feeling comfortable, I mean, I understand that my look is not for everybody, and I think that I'm totally okay with that, because it is for other people, and that's okay. Maximalist furniture isn't for everybody, so but it is for you guys who watch me, so I appreciate that. So I'm going to go on, put my dark red on top of my sort of orangier toned red, and I had a shelf there, but Martin's been. And what I've been doing with the shelves is I've been painting them Chateau Grey was the colour I couldn't remember yesterday. I've only done 2 coats on the back yet. I've just got to turn it around and flip them around and do this side. So what I'm going to do once this is dry is I'm going to seal it with my top coat sealer. You don't need to see me sealing a piece of furniture. And then I'm going to come back and then we are going to add some dark wax just in and around, just to give it that, we've put everything on, but now we need to give it this a little bit of depth when you stand back. Not as much as I did with the very original one, but a little bit of depth. Just a tiny bit of depth, not the depth that I put in the last one. So
Lil watched that video and she's like, how much am I putting on?
Don't know. I thought obviously that was the way to go. And it did work, and it was a lovely piece of furniture and it was nice, but it just, I think now, I think I'm looking for a little bit more tone.
Less is more, as opposed to more
well,
is
no,
more.
no. I think as the years have gone on, I've gone more is more. But on that particular piece, I think there wasn't a lot of detail on it. And I always think that waxing involves quite a bit of detail. And I was just kind of putting it onto flat, quite monotone paint behind it. And I didn't really like it. Whereas I've got all these edges around here and I've got lots of texture as well for it to sit in. So that's the way to go. So paint the backs of these shelves, fix the red on here, put some white and some darker red on the sides, seal it, and then we'll come back with the dark wax. Right, I'm onto the wax now. So the piece has been completely sealed twice. I've got the shelves back in. Once we've done this part, I'll get Martin to put the handles on and we'll probably get into staging up. But I just wanted to show you, because I had all the crackle texture up here, what I did was I got my dark wax, and I'll just do it again. So I'll put it into the crackles and I just wiped it back so that my dark wax sits in there really nice. I'm really pleased with that texture up there. And Fern, for you who was asking about texture, this is not, I repeat, not coming off. It's on for good. So, if you don't like too much texture in the beginning, be mindful of that. Right, so what am I doing? I'm taking a tiny little art brush, and remember it's been sealed, which means that I don't have to worry about clear waxing it first. If you do a big thing and it isn't moving along and you don't like it, you can come back and get a little soft cloth like this, put a little bit of clear wax on it and just wipe it back. But you don't need this so much, it will move easier. So there's two chains of thought. I'm wanting to grubby up these edges. So literally I'm just going to do this just to define them from the distance. This is okay this way. You don't want to do too much like this though, because it can end up looking a little bit cartoon-like if you put, you know, do too many things like this. But because I'm trying to age it, I'm more aging it than accentuating all the creases. I'm just aging it now. So where I think the age would be, I've done it up under here. You can move it down into these grooves. I'm just bringing it along here. I'm just wiping it away. You can bring it out if you think I want a kind of more like dirty patch there. You can just bring it out and down and make sure that continues on the inside of there as well, so that it's got continuity. Again, just down here, bringing that out a bit more. Oops. You can give your glass the once over at the end. So down these edges here. Now, I've actually done down this part, and I just want to run over what I've actually done here. On these corners here, as I said before, I like a corner, and I've got all this lovely texture, so I may as well use it. So let's just accentuate that, some of that texture there. This is almost like sort of dry brushing it over with wax. I've brought it down under here. And over here now, can you see where this really has a lot of texture? I rubbed it into here and brought it down. Rubbied this area up here and then left it. I've done this door here and it's done. I don't want to overdo it either. So the last door I have to really do and work on is this one here. And I'm just doing the same thing. I'm just kind of almost putting a low light into my furniture that makes this square area stand out. Just like this. And if you want to have a bit over, you can. Same on this side. You can see it from a completely different angle from here as well, the way Martin's doing it. So running it in, grubbing up that corner there, and down. I've done it on the sides. I've done it down this bottom edge here. I've ran it down this bottom edge. You can do a little bit in here because this is where dirt would settle. But really, that is as much. You can get quite fast at it like I'm doing here. That is as much as I'm doing really on this piece. Now, I don't want to lose it and make it too dark. And sometimes when you start adding dark wax, especially with me, I mean, you've seen the original one, I can get a little bit out of control. So that's enough for that. Now, quickly just going to, what did I do with them? Martin, you just focus.
I know where they are. Stay where you are.
Where are they?
I'm just taking you up with me.
Now, handles. I have been saving the most amazing handles in my stash for about a year now. I did think about doing it the way my original inspo was and getting balustrade posts, but Matt went out to his shed to have a look, and just over time we've used up that big stash we had. So I thought about these handles.
I built a pirate ship for Poppy.
Yeah, Matt's pirate ship took up all the balustrades because it needed a cage to put the bad smugglers.
Yeah.
So we had none of those left, and I'm going to show you these handles now. Here they are. And now the natural conclusion would be to put them on like this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to get Martin to, is that right? No, to put them on like this for me. I think they look, I've tried this way and this way. So this way and this way, but I think this way looks really nice and it makes it look a little bit more unusual. So I'm going to get Martin to put these on, and then before I do any end footage, I'm just going to put some wax under here, because if you were grabbing handles through time, the grease off your hands would make you dirty, and that's what you're trying to aim for. So this is where these are going to go, these beautiful handles. So they're really, really quite impressive. And I had been going to maybe considering putting some gold leaf on this, but I thought it might take it in a route that was maybe slightly not the route I wanted to go. But I think these handles take it in the route that I wanted to go. And we'll talk about this at the end. Humble, cheap IKEA furniture. It doesn't look anything like it's IKEA now. The only visually, you will never be able to tell. When your customer buys it, you have to be honest and say it's made from laminate wood. You tell the story, say this was an IKEA piece of furniture. They'll be like even more gobsmacked. Do not try and make it out to be something it isn't. It's an IKEA piece of furniture. However, it doesn't look like an IKEA piece of furniture. And I have some really high-end customers who have bought pieces like this off me before. Because when this is screwed up into their wall and in their beautiful, stunning farmhouse kitchen, you can't tell. The only tell is the weight. When you open the doors are lighter than an original vintage piece, would be much heavier. But that's it. That's your only tell. Your visual tell isn't there. And that's a good sign that you've done a good job, that you've eradicated any evidence of any cheap components that was made into this. Now, I'm not knocking IKEA furniture at all. I've got some IKEA furniture, I think, in my son's room. But what I'm trying to say is the sad fact of the reality of the world is I was struggling to find IKEA pieces at a price that I wanted to pay. It was a crazy price that people were trying to sell IKEA furniture for. And the sad part is I can go to an auction and get an antique piece of furniture for hardly any money. So what is it that's wrong with the world? The mass-produced stuff people are selling second-hand for quite a lot of money. The beautiful vintage, the heavy, the real McCoy stuff, can't sell it. So, you know, is it because houses have got smaller and they're easier, or they're ease, or people can get their hands on them? Is it that? Is it just that purely mass-produced thing? Or is it really that, you know, if we kind of were shopped more responsibly, then we could get some older stuff? But anyway, it doesn't really matter. That's a debate for a different day. My point is, IKEA furniture, let's turn it all into something absolutely beautiful that nobody would ever guess how it had started its journey. So I'm going to get on, get this finished, and then we'll get it staged up. Okay, what did we do? Just a quick recap. Mixed a greeny, bluey, greyish colour up, did one coat, then added kaolin clay to make texture for my second lot, then watered down some paint to give it its third sort of final coat. Then I added a wash of various different greens, quite wet so that the paint moved. Did some distress, did some white, did some burgundy, deconstructed a transfer and kind of did an older sort of age finish in the inside. That doesn't sound like that much. This is probably, I don't know how long this video is, but it's probably going to be like 3 hours. How did I get my inspo?
We certainly don't seem to be able to do anything less than about an hour and 20. So
no, you're right. I try really hard to make them short, but to try and show everything, this is the time they take. I'm sorry, I do an awful lot of talking.
Teaching.
What to say about it is this. I think when you look at this piece of furniture now, you could never in a million years think that this was, and this, I don't even think this was IKEA. I think it was even cheaper than IKEA. Now, don't get me wrong, it's all structurally sound. It's just its quality of materials aren't so good. It's laminated wood for a start off. It's got that thin, cheap baseboard on the back, you know, but it is what it is. And I have now made it something completely different. And I don't think you could tell it was what it once was. And that's the trick of these looks. Fern, who sent me the message about the texture, it isn't coming off, Fern. I think she was just scared it was going to come off. What else to say about it? My original piece, if you go back and watch that, you can see my journey. And I think today was about journeys as well. And is it the same as my other piece? No, and it was never going to be, because it was just inspiration. But I can, if I squint my eyes and think about it hard enough, I can see where it came from. That's about it for today, Martin. Have you got anything to add about today's, what we've done What are the last few days? Anything to add? No.
No, I think it's an interesting. It's interesting for me as well, you know, because I've been there through it all, seen where you come from. That piece that you originally did, that was what really sort of got you started. And well, look at the journey you've been on.
It was the first
sorry,
piece
my camera angle wandered off as I was gazing at the piece there.
It was certainly the first piece that I ever tried to film, although, as I said, I've been doing furniture for a long time, but it was certainly one of the pieces. I found it difficult enough filming small crafts, let alone furniture, so there's some really dodgy angles and lots of out of focus pieces of filming for me, and a lot of my feet, which is quite good as well, I thought, when I giggled. But everybody's got a journey, and I think everybody's got a cheap piece of furniture, and you can just, I mean, what changes it is, I think, texture, some movement. The transfer changes it. The handles 100% make it. Painting inside and eradicating any of the cheap metal fixings, the hinges, all of those, get them gone. Remember the tops. And really, that's it for today. So I have been Learning from Made by Marley. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like, a share, thumbs up, leave me a comment, and please do not forget to subscribe. And I will see you next Sunday along with the lovely Martin. Martin, would you like to say anything?
See you next Sunday.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.